This segment is about workplace injuries. The key provisions of the law are these. The employer must report an accident to the Ministry of Manpower if his employee has suffered an injury meriting more than 3 days of medical leave. This report must be submitted within 10 days of the accident. Oh, by the way, the law makes the 10 days time frame mandatory, but does not stipulate any penalty for failing to do so. Talk about loopholes. The law provides that the employer shall be responsible for medical expenses and shall pay medical leave wages, usually called MC wages, for up to 1 year from the date of the accident. A separate law makes the employer responsible for, quote, upkeep and maintenance, unquote, which generally means housing and food. If the injury has left the worker with a permanent disability, then the extent of this disability is assessed at the end of treatment and a quantum of compensation is calculated. It all sounds quite reasonable on paper. But what really happens? There are countless cases of employers leaning on doctors to issue no more than 2 days medical leave, even for severe injuries. Their motives are loud and clear: to avoid having to report the accident to the ministry. The ministry may still learn about the accident from the worker. Many a boss, when asked by the ministry to confirm the facts of the matter, strenuously deny that his employee was injured at work. This then puts the worker in a very difficult position. So long as the employer denies that it was a workplace accident and the ministry remains unable to decide, the employer's responsibility for medical care and MC wages is suspended. Alternatively, employers can put pressure on injured workers not to seek medical attention. Some injuries are very severe and treatment may stretch beyond the anniversary of the accident. If it does, the employer's obligation to pay expires. How likely is it that workers with their low salaries can pay themselves for surgery or physiotherapy? In summary, the facade is that the Work Injury Compensation Act sets out a simple, no-fault, low-cost process where the worker receives medical treatment and MC wages. When he gets well enough and gets off medical leave, he then returns to work, and thus his income stream will not be much interrupted. If there is permanent disability, he will be compensated. The reality is vastly different. It's a hugely complicated process where the worker has to prove that the accident occurred at work, but it's the employer who controls the work site and the documentation. How is the worker to prove much? So long as the employer denies that he was injured at work, the promises of medical treatment and MC wages are largely mythical. The system envisages the worker returning to his job when he is well enough. But many employers of foreign workers quickly cancel the work permits of injured workers. There is no job to return to, even though the worker has to stay on in Singapore in his struggle to get medical treatment or compensation. The last item on my list really gets my goat. TWC2 has seen several cases where the ministry has prosecuted and sent to jail workers on the ground that they lied about the injury claim. On the other hand, there are thousands of employers who have lied in their attempts to deny that their employees were injured at the work site. We have never seen any of them prosecuted for lying to MOM. Why this asymmetry?